Hello everybody, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. So, the purpose of this video is to serve as an introduction to spirituality, an introduction to spiritual practices for those who are just beginning on the path. It's my recommendations as to what the best practices are that you can do, and also a few other little hints about how to succeed on your spiritual journey and not fall into some of the pitfalls that you can fall into early on. So, modern spirituality, alternative forms of spirituality, give us a smorgasbord of practices and schools of thought that we can choose from. And it's hard to know what's what. It's hard to know what's legitimate, what isn't. It's hard to know what's a cult and what isn't, what's a true form of spirituality and what is just a system of manipulation and exploitation disguised as a spiritual system. And there's a lot of material out there that is not that good because either it's superficial or watered down, or because it's just not based in anything real at all. It's just a form of fantasizing. And then there's other material that you will come across, particularly if you are studying the Western esoteric tradition, which, while it contains gems of wisdom, you really have to look hard to find them, because either they were written at a time where there was religious persecution against anyone who didn't follow the Catholic Church in Europe, or they were written by these sorts of elitist occultists that came around the 19th century who wanted to make everybody solve cryptic puzzles to find one piece of information that can be summarized in one sentence in a succinct fashion, but they did it because they felt that they needed to hide that knowledge from those that they deemed unworthy. So you can waste a lot of time and energy going down certain paths when you begin your spiritual practice, and I want to save you that trouble. I want to just tell you straight up what the best things you could be doing are, in my experience. And the first thing I would say on that is meditate. If there is just one practice that you do for the rest of your spiritual journey, for the rest of your life, meditate, and meditate some more. If you can build up to having a daily practice of meditation, then it'll have amazing benefits for you. It'll not only make you more balanced, more at peace, it'll make you see things more clearly, give you more control over your emotions. It'll train your concentration, but it'll also allow you to see beneath your personality, to see what pure awareness is and how limitless it really is, and the bliss and the liberation that comes from identifying with that and discovering that that is what you truly are. So meditation is enormously beneficial. And there are several old traditions which will teach you a form of meditation. The ones that I'm familiar with, the ones that I've practiced myself, are Raja Yoga, also some forms of Buddhist meditation such as Vipassana, or better known as mindfulness meditation, and also there's the Theravadan school of meditation as well, which is quite decent. But then there's other schools which I don't have experience with, such as the Zen schools. There's more modern forms of meditation as well, such as transcendental meditation, I don't have any experience with those, but I can vouch for Raja Yoga, I can vouch for Theravadan Buddhist meditation and for Vipassana meditation. And there's a real advantage if you're looking for a tradition of going back to the older traditions, because the benefit of a tradition that's hundreds of years old is that there's hundreds of years of experience, of experimentation with consciousness, which then yields a result which has been rigorously tested and works, and so continues on and has stood the test of time. And with traditional forms of spirituality, there's a lot of things that aren't particularly useful or which are tailored to a particular culture or at a particular time in history, but the spiritual technology of meditation is truly timeless, and that element of the tradition is definitely worth looking at and practicing. So that's meditation. And meditation is important because the goal of spirituality is to transcend this world, to see beyond it, and to be free of the conditions that we face existing in a world of limitations and a society of limitations. But it would be unwise to think that we should just give up our lives and go and live in a cave, because we have responsibilities in this world and we are a part of this world. We can't deny it. And so we need to find a way of functioning in the world that will allow us to not lose sight of that which is beyond, that which is eternal. But we cannot simply turn our backs on the world. And we cannot go to the extreme of making ourselves uncomfortable and denying ourselves even the most basic pleasures of life because that's an attachment or similar. We should still get enjoyment out of life, and we should still be well and happy in life. And we should have compassion for ourselves as well as for other people. We just need to know that we need to be looking beyond. But if we don't set our own house in order, so to speak, if we don't focus somewhat on our own well-being in this world, then it'll be very hard to pursue a spiritual practice. And for that reason, there are other practices that I would recommend to try and understand our own psychology and try and change those parts of our psychology that aren't serving us anymore. One of those practices is divination. So, in particular, I'm thinking of different oracles that you can use. So, tarot cards, other oracle cards, the I-Ching, and so forth. And you don't have to believe in psychic powers to appreciate how useful these tools can be. Because ultimately what's happening when you are giving yourself a tarot spread or casting the I-Ching, for example, is you are throwing out symbols which can be interpreted any number of ways. But your mind will notice things, and whatever it notices, whether it's a particular symbol in a card or the way that one of the hexagrams can be applied to a situation, your mind is relating it to something that it's familiar with. And that'll happen at an unconscious level. So even if your conscious mind is blocking things and not acknowledging things that are buried within your unconscious has permission to acknowledge those things by externalizing them in the oracle. And so you can uncover things that you need to work on, problems that you need to work on, things about yourself that you need to face, or situations that you haven't acknowledged, so that you can move past them. And divination is a really good tool for that. And then there's another tool for changing circumstances once you've acknowledged them and acknowledged that those circumstances need to change, and that is the practice of manifestation, otherwise known as the law of attraction or the secret. But in ancient times and in medieval times, it was known by a different name, and that is magic. So this is manifestation. It's the ability to call forth situations in your life that reflect the things that you want to attain, which isn't always easy, but it becomes easier through the practice of manifestation, of attracting those situations to you. And there's a limit to that. You can't perform miracles. There are some obstacles that are insurmountable until circumstances change. But you can certainly rewire your own psychology using manifestation by affirming that you will attain something. You can make that come more easily. And there are times in our lives when we need more security, whether it's health or wealth or better relationships, and we need to get that sorted out before we can have inner peace. And particularly when we're first starting out on the path, we need to keep our house in order. And manifestation can help us reach a point where we're comfortable, where we have that point where we can be grounded because we've taken care of the things that were fetters before. Sometimes there's external obstacles as well as internal ones. The other practice that I would recommend is a simple one. It is an obvious one, or at least it should be obvious, but it doesn't go as acknowledged as it should be in this day and age. And that is, be a good person. Be good to one another. And that seems obvious again, but it's not. And particularly in spirituality today, there is a big focus on personal well-being and living my best life and what is best for me. And even with the practice of manifestation and the practice of divination that I mentioned earlier, you can get stuck in just doing what is best for you, what's going to help you, without ever looking beyond that and using that for a higher goal. But ultimately we have to look beyond the self. The whole point of spirituality is to look beyond the self and to think about how our actions not only affect us but affect the world around us, to acknowledge that we are part of something greater. And that's what the moral practices are about. This is cultivating virtue, cultivating ethics, which is something which the classical civilizations understood very well. But again, we've lost sight of that a bit now. But it's really about being responsible for your own actions, how they affect your own life, and being responsible for how your actions might affect others, and always trying to minimize the harm that you do that is unnecessary and maximize the good that you're responsible for yourself and for others. And so it's important to try and live in that way in spirituality, and to remind ourselves that we should be focusing on what is best for all living things, not just ourselves. Particularly in these times, we need to keep reminding ourselves of that. And if we identify behaviors in ourselves that are not helpful for our own well-being or those that we relate to, we should work hard to change ourselves and transform those negative behavior traits into something that's more constructive and to replace our negative habits with positive ones. The final thing that I would say for what are the most important kinds of things to bear in mind beginning your spiritual journey is ultimately follow no one except for your own heart. You can listen to people who are more experienced on the spiritual path and listen to what they have to say, and it may well be of benefit to you, but it may not be. And ultimately, you need to be satisfied that what you're following is the right way. There's no single person out there who is the master, who has the one right answer to every spiritual question and who can never be questioned. That is just straight out wrong. And that kind of view that there are these perfect beings, these flawless beings out there who are just such great masters that you need to hang on every word that they say, that belief that such people exist has been used and abused time and time again by people who just want to control you. So beware of anybody who holds themselves out to be some kind of incarnation of a god or whatever it is, reincarnation of some great master of the past. Be wary of those people and always test people by what they do, how they treat other people, not just what they say. And anything that you are told, any practice that is recommended to you, try it for yourself and see if it works for you. And because ultimately that is the only thing that you can really trust, is your own experience. And some things will work better for some people, other things will work better for other people. So try practices, don't be irresponsible, but try practices and see if they work. And if they work, that's what you follow. But it's always what your own heart wants, because that is ultimately the only guru that matters, is your own heart, your own consciousness. And the whole point of spirituality is to get in contact with that and be guided by that alone. So don't listen to me. Test everything that I say. Don't take anything for granted. And believe in yourself and try what I've suggested and see if it works for you. And I hope that this video has been useful to you and you'll find it beneficial. I will do more detailed videos on all of the topics that I've covered today. So the ones that I have personal experience of. So just stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time.